for those who don't know, my dad's a Black man, and I didn't grow up in a very political household, so I did not know my father's political beliefs growing up. So I come home and I'm like, these kids are talking about voting for Trump. Like, this is crazy. Like, all I've heard is that he's a racist. And my dad's looking at me like I'm crazy. He literally looked at me and was like, I'm going to vote for Trump. And so I was like,
mind blown.
I was like, what?
This was Olivia Rondeau's red pill moment.
This was my red pill. This was my like initial red pill moment. I've since been red pilled like multiple times since then, but this was my initial red pill moment. And so I started to do research. You know, I was a smart kid, so I was like, at least I'm going to do my due diligence. If something that I previously thought has turned out to be wrong, you know, I'm going to do my research. And I researched a lot into Trump's opponent. And in that election, it was Hillary Clinton. And I researched a lot into the DNC and the Clinton Foundation and what they did in Haiti and Bill Clinton and all the allegations against him.
You've gone too far.
I was into like Pizzagate and Hillary at like 16 years old. There was no going back from there. I was like, I cannot support Democrats ever, 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 ever. So
not Pizzagate.
I was into, bro, I was like, they were keeping them kids. Like, I was like that. Anyway, I still am like that.
Years old.
I still am like that. But yeah. So that's when I first started getting into it. And so at the time, this was a huge tangent to say at the time, I was less of a conservative in terms of principles, but kind of reactionary against the left. And I started, you know, I go into the YouTube wormhole of like, Ben Shapiro destroys college. So that's the kind of content I was watching at the time, which
fair enough because I used to watch that content too.
But it's definitely the pipeline to like the real intellectual dark web, you know?
Right. I think that actually points out something really interesting that so many people that consider themselves conservatives, I find, are just simply reactionary, right? There's not much that they do stand for, right? There's not much thought and research
at the time. I couldn't even tell you why I had the opinions that I had. So the way I was raised, like I said, was not political, but I did grow up in a gun shooting household, a very, I would say, pull yourself up by your bootstraps household, religious household. So for all intents and purposes, I was raised as a conservative, although I was not told to vote Republican.
So with the values.
Yeah, those conservative values. So it wasn't 100% reactionary because I still had a lot of those values instilled in me despite going through my Tumblr phase. Like I was never anti-gun and I was never like a feminist, which really confused even the Tumblr kids at the time because I was like, you have to respect she, her, they, its pronouns. But I was not a feminist just because I grew up. I grew up doing for myself and I grew up being kind of like the independent woman, but not complaining about men and not really not really feeling like there was inequality that I had no control over. Like I wasn't gonna be oppressed in that way. And I still don't really consider myself a feminist until it comes to biological males and women's sports, which is a topic I'm very passionate about today. But I supported things that I couldn't defend. Like I was a big like thin blue line person, I guess I would say. Like I would literally use the hashtag like thin blue line at 17 years old, not really knowing anything about police unions, not knowing anything about qualified immunity, not knowing anything about the things that I know now about criminal justice reform. And that's not saying ACAB, but I'm not saying I did a 180, but I look at the situation with more nuance, and I'm not looking at police
skepticism, right?
Much more skepticism. I'm not looking at police as a protected class necessarily, as a lot of MAGA supporters did, at least at the time.